Brought to you by Dale Carnegie of Orange County, this is the 411 on Leadership podcast, where we discuss common sense leadership practices with executives in Southern California to transform you into the leader people want to follow. And this is the 411 on Leadership podcast. My name is Steve Thomas. To my left is John Campbell. We want to welcome each and every one of you to our podcast this week. John, how's everything going, my friend?
Everything's going well. Thank you, sir. And hey, if you're listening and joining us with us, please make sure that you are a part of the conversation. We want to hear from you. It means a lot to us to hear your engagement. If you've got questions, comments, clarifications, even if you're not watching or listening live, we still want to hear from you. You can always comment later. It means a lot to us if you like and subscribe. Please feel free to share this with your friends on whatever platform you're listening. Thanks so much. As always, Steve, our fabulous Sitch Radio team makes this happen.
Yep.
Please reach out to Brian and the team here because they are here for any of your podcasting needs. And also, as always, Dale Carnegie.
Yeah. So again, if you are interested in getting into podcasts and sharing your story, feel free to visit and talk to our man Brian at sitchradio.com. We're excited about this new series that we're into, where we're looking back at 2021, and we called it last week the SFL in recognition of the NFL that's going on,
right, which is
success, failures, and leadership lessons learned in 2021. And so we're excited, as we always are, to have this particular guest join our podcast this morning. Her name is Cherie Aplin. She is the Global Leadership Development Head at Edwards Lifesciences, which is a huge medical device organization here in Orange County. And so Cherie, she leads the global leadership development team. And she brings over 20 years of business experience as a human resource professional and also executive as well. And prior to being as a part of Edwards, Cherie worked for multiple large corporations in leadership development, talent management, managerial positions. Also, Cherie has also served on the HR advisory board at Cal State Fullerton, which is where my daughter goes to college now, the graduate program specifically. Also the Alumni Association for UCSB. She's also been twice a board member of the Capistrano Coast National Charity League and alumni of Vance Caesar's Young Leaders Organization program. One thing I do want to mention about Cherie before we bring her on, one of the things as we connected and she wrote this down in the email for me was her purpose statement, which is what we were going to focus our conversation on today, which is to unify and elevate others by shaping a positive future. Cherie, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast this morning.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here, and thanks for that great introduction. I'm humbled, and it reminds me of how long I've been doing this. So thank you.
Yeah, most definitely. And you offer so much to the leadership community and what you're doing right now and what you will be doing moving forward. So we're excited to hear about your story. So, if you would, Cherie, describe your leadership journey to this point.
Yeah. So, I've been doing this a long time. I've always been super passionate about leadership. I think it started probably when I got my first job right out of college, when I had my first very bad leader. And I thought, okay, well, you kind of learn from that, right? Everything you don't want to be.
Yeah.
So I kind of made a vow at that point that there's got to be a different way of leading people. And of course, to me, it's always about people first. So I don't know, it's been a long journey, just a passion, always thinking about how we can help people and how we do our work, not so much what we accomplish. I think a lot of times we focus on the what, and we don't take into consideration how we show up, how we behave. So for me, that I've been more focused on the how to kind of balance, I think, the world out a little bit. And I feel like people get stuck a lot in that, we get a lot of, we learn a lot about the what in school, but not a lot about how we interact. I guess it's kind of the gray area where people just kind of say you figure it out.
Yeah.
And then they go into the workplace and they really don't know what they're doing, and they're all of a sudden now working with all these people, and these people have different motivations and drivers and unique experiences. And it's just a really fun challenge.
Mm, mm,
So I think for me, it's really about the challenge of like cracking those nuts and trying to figure out ways to help unblock people, including myself, right?
mm,
Because we're always learning.
mm.
And this
Look,
year, the last 2 years have been a lot of learning in a
Right.
very compressed period of time.
yeah,
Absolutely. I got to say, as we understood your background a little bit, we have kind of some shared experience because both Steve and I
Oh.
have banking backgrounds, and we saw that you
Yeah.
had a stint. So we're amongst friends. I think that's kind of the. I think
Financial
someone needs to go
world.
through the financial world or through
Mhm.
banking
It
as their
was
leadership
almost
journey.
Riveting.
threatened when she said that she's a Rams fan and the
Oh,
Rams
sorry.
destroyed
Yeah.
my team yesterday.
Yeah,
So
I'm glad you
know.
made it in the studio. Well, I was
I
was on
save
the-
face.
She practiced the Dale Carnegie
Yeah.
principle when she did help me to save face on that.
I'm sure
Yeah.
it's all the injuries.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to just touch on. Thanks so much for talking about seeing someone who didn't display the best leadership qualities and not just being upset and angry or complaining. I mean, we didn't have the same type of social media opportunities like now if you're a bad leader, it's on Glassdoor, it's on every single platform. But seeing that and saying, you know what, I'm going to make a change. I'm going to do this differently. And looking, and it sounds like really trying to invest in your knowledge and understanding on how to make a change and a difference in the work environment.
Yeah, I know it's interesting. I always say you have a choice. We all have choices, and people tend to get stuck
Yeah.
in this mentality where they just spin and they don't know how to get unstuck. So I think that if you look at it from an objective lens and you say, okay, well, I know it's really easy to get emotional about things, right? We're all human beings, and,
Right.
and we could sit here and think, okay, well, that's a bad manager. They're picking on me. They're micromanaging me. But I have a bunch of millennial kids, and I always tell them, you have boundaries. You can communicate what you need from your leaders. They don't know. They're not mind readers, but you should do it in a way that's respectful and with a sense of kindness. And if it doesn't change, you have choices.
Yeah.
And you're not stuck. Nobody's stuck. We only make ourselves stuck if we want to be stuck. So my goal, I guess, is I'm always trying to help people, including myself, because we're human again.
Right.
When I hear myself, we call it going below the line. It's just like change management. Like, what can I do to help that person? To best serve them so that they can get unstuck, so they can start making more positive change for themselves. And that's kind of my purpose statement. It's around elevating others in a positive way.
And Cherie, that's so powerful because I can think there are times in my life where I felt stuck or kind of like, okay, well, this is how it is and it won't change. And if you're thinking about the business climate and where people are and depending on the situations, they think, oh man, we're going to be in this thing forever. And so it takes leaders like yourself to look at what are some best ways in which we can serve them, knowing that once we help them to be unstuck, maybe us and ourselves, maybe we're some stuck in certain situations or mentalities ourselves that we could, for lack of a better word, unstick ourselves out of as we look at others and we're looking into helping others. So I think that's so powerful. As you reflect on these last couple of years, what would you say is a leadership success that stands out in your mind that's solidified what your purpose is?
There have been so many amazing breakthroughs, I think, in the last couple of years. Although COVID was horrible and it still exists, and we're still working through it, but I think it accelerated my role. I've never been busier in just helping people navigate, these waters. People that were kind of comfortable in the way things were, and how do you get them to get used to maybe new ways of working. I know a lot of our leaders were freaking out when all of a sudden everyone was sent home, the one infamous day where we all couldn't be in the office. And especially at Edwards, we're a very in-person culture. And that really challenged our employees, our leaders. And people were like, we need help right away. We need to help our leaders learn how to connect with our people. And I said, well, that's a challenge in itself, right? What has changed? They should be connected, right? So I think what we learned for me was this idea around being intentional about connecting. And I think our leaders were so used to kind of their getting the what done that they kind of lost sense of how important the how was.
Yeah.
And I think more than ever, that's becoming really up to the forefront of where we're really needing to grow and learn. That's why they say what these soft skills are the new hard skills.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, because we're now being challenged with, I think organizations are being challenged to learn how to keep employees, right? Because now employees are basically saying, you know, I want to have fun at work. I want to enjoy my work, but I also want to enjoy my life.
Right.
And that's the thing about Edwards. You know, we're in the business of helping patients. It's our life's work, and we say life is now. So that's a big, lofty purpose to work for an organization like that. And I think one of the things I learned, especially working at Edwards, is the importance of purpose. I didn't have a purpose until I got there, to be honest. And so that really helped me solidify, how do I help Edwards hit their purpose? Well, if I can elevate others in a positive way and get them unstuck, that means we save more patients. So
that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I want to ask a little bit about that as we're listening here on a Monday morning to Cherie Aplin. Our guest, as we're going through our SFL series, Successes, Failures, and Lessons Learned. Tell us a little bit on our listeners, because Edwards is no small company and you're there helping develop teams. I mean, give us just a little insight on Edwards, who you are, and what type of team are you working with? What's the size and impact of that?
Yeah, I think we're a really small team comparatively. I think we have about 18,000 employees across the globe in almost 100 different countries. We speak multiple languages.
Wow.
So I would say my career-wise, this is my biggest challenge yet. And I can't say I feel like I've really been completely successful. We're still growing and learning and scaling. And I think it's like, again, I think we're at a place now where we want everyone to feel like one Edwards.
Yeah.
And how do we make that DNA show up no matter where we are in the world and still maintain our uniqueness, you know, depending on where we sit in our role and our function. So at Edwards, I'd like to say there's a leader in all of us, and we don't just focus on people leaders, even though they're very important in our organization, but we believe everyone has leadership capabilities called professional development.
Right.
We struggle over the terminology sometimes, but it gets back to the how we show up. And it's, again, I hope that in our future, we look at really balancing out, not only we get great results, which I believe we have always been very successful at, but it's also just as important how. So it's fun every day. I think work should be fun, and I feel like I have the best job in the world. I'm a complete and total leadership development nerd in general, but I really think it's how you make people feel, and that's what makes them want to come to work for you, right? So we talk a lot about that, and if we can make people feel really good about getting up every morning and wanting to do their best work, then we all win.
Yeah,
right.
And we're better together, and that's kind of some themes that I think about a lot.
It's such a powerful idea around the idea of leadership development. If you think about it, I mean, if you break down what leadership is influence, right? And so all of us carry a certain measure of influence, whether we have a leadership title or not. And so the focus of you and your team there at Edwards is, again, not focusing on the people leaders, although they're important. It's just everyone, because everybody carries that degree of influence. Everybody has that ability to impact somebody else's life. And so we can see clearly how your purpose just aligns with Edwards. Again, I'm thinking the unify as being part of what your purpose is and what you're trying to do internally, and just kind of unifying that into one Edwards. That's just such a powerful role that you have. And I would like to say you're probably doing better than you think there. So, we definitely encourage you and say thanks for doing that. As we're looking at this, what would you say, Cherie, is we don't have to go too deep, and so we can go as deep as you feel comfortable with, but what would you classify as something that didn't quite work out as well as relates to what you may have experienced that does not align with purpose? And what was the lesson that you've learned from that?
I guess it goes back to burnout.
Okay.
I think a lot about when the pandemic hit, and I I think agility is really important, right? Because everything is moving so fast. And one of my strengths was I'm agile.
Okay.
When you go in with an agile mindset, it's really hard to be focused. So you can get out of balance pretty quickly, and you can actually lose your focus pretty quickly. So there's this fine line I've realized between balance or imbalance. When you look at focus and agility, they're almost diametrically opposed from one another. So I think I learned very quickly that I can get out of balance very quickly because of my passion. So I think my family, my personal life, all those kind of things were a little bit on the back burner. And I went in like a warrior, like I'm going to like make sure Edwards is set up for success, and we're going to convert every in-person session to a virtual, and we're going to make sure we get the word out there that, you know, there's hope and help for everyone, and we can all connect still, even if we're working virtually. And pretty soon I realized that I was like a hamster on a wheel.
Wow.
Yeah.
We hit our numbers. I mean, we did things that were very remarkable that I'm very proud of. But at the same point, I think there was an opportunity to be more focused and reflective. So now I'm pivoting back to, you know, what does that mean to be reflective? And how do you create like that high energy when it matters, but also that balance with reflection? So I think that's where this whole mindfulness is coming into play now, where people are just exhausted.
Okay.
And I feel like we're all in this together. You know, it's everyone's on a different course, but we're pretty much experiencing this universally across the globe in different ways. And it comes in waves, right?
Yeah.
In different parts of the globe.
If I can say it, I'll pass this off to you, John.
No, you can't.
No, I just wanted to piggyback on what you were saying and just my life journey so far. So recently we did our office did a stress webinar. It was a complimentary session, and you know, one of the things or a couple of things that we talked about was if you look at being balanced and preventing that burnout. I mean, you have things there physically that you have to do to make sure you're managing your stress. There's mentally things you do to manage your stress, whether it's you know meditation or whatever it is, and then there's the social aspect of it. And I haven't thought of that because again, I'm thinking, all right, the physical part of it, I had to exercise pretty regularly. The mental part of it, you know, there's sometimes, I sit back, you know, I'm reading and doing all those sorts of things. But then the social impact, because of COVID and the impact it's had on that portion of it, I had to think and realize, oh, wait, you know what? Like, I'm not connecting with as many people as I have before. Right. And I'm only bringing this up is because, you know, recently just had talked to my doctor and we're just, you know, I was telling him about certain things I was feeling just physically. And so, you know, they were just mentioning just the amount of stress that it has. And again, I'm thinking, well, okay, physically I'm doing things, mentally I'm doing things, but then again, the social aspect of it, not connecting with people. And so, you know, I just mentioned all of that just in connection with what you're doing and just us having to stave off that stress, because I mean, you touched on it, Cherie, that all of us are feeling the amount of stress right now. We may not be feeling it as much because we're constantly on the go. And it's not until we take the time to sit back and like, oh, wait, you know what? This is really having an effect on me. That we realize how much of a negative impact that it has on us. And so I just want to connect with that because that really resonated with me personally. And just my, you know, his encouragement to me is like, okay, how much am I connecting socially to help mitigate that stress and to keep me on the purpose that I believe that, you know, that I've been given moving forward.
And I think it speaks to, you talked about mindfulness, being self-aware. So you've got that element. And I really like what you talked about. You have that agility as one of your strengths. And every strength, as we do strength finders, there are the dark sides too. And addressing that, knowing that it helps you be a better leader and being aware of, you know, what are some of the pitfalls that I might run into with some of those strengths. Let me ask you another question, especially as we're talking about the burnout. And the element of what COVID has done. Have you seen, and this is just me asking the question, because of the remote working, there's not that distinction where I turn off my computer and I leave the office, where now so many people are working from home. Is there a connection? Do you see a correlation for that? Or some people's you know, it's not just the 5 o'clock or the 6 o'clock, whatever that, you know, sometimes you can turn the mind off from work, but you're home, you're like, oh, maybe it's just another half an hour. Maybe it's another hour. Has that played into what you've seen?
Well, yeah, that goes back to that chronic stress, right? And burnout we talked about. And I think, it's the boundaries are unclear, right? We've brought work to home. I mean, not that for me, I've worked geographically dispersed before. I've worked, I travel a lot for work and whatnot. So, you know, I'm used to working in the flow of my work.
Yeah.
But now I do it all the time. And now everyone else does it all the time too, whether you like it or not. It's not even a matter of preference, right? And for some people it comes naturally, and for others it doesn't. And even for me, I think it comes naturally, I have to mindfully and intentionally set boundaries.
Okay.
It doesn't happen because my nature is to work until I'm spent. I love what I do.
Yeah.
And at times, you know, when your loved ones start coming to you and saying, you know, when is dinner or what's going on, and when are you going to get off the call? Because I'm on calls. I have a global team.
All right. Yeah.
And we have a global company. So with that, now that means we have time zone constraints.
Right.
And I feel empathetic to my colleagues in the rest of the world, because typically we like make it work for the US, and and then we've got people in Israel or people in India, you know, on calls at literally 3 o'clock in the morning. So we have to rotate those, you know, so we give everyone a chance to rest. But if you don't manage it, you can be working 24/7, right?
Yeah.
And we know about chronic stress. And I think chronic stress is almost worse than episodic stress because it's constant. You don't even know it's happening until it's too late.
Okay.
Right. So you being in the heart business, you know, I worry about those kinds of things. And at Edwards, we're a very healthy, you know, we think about health and fitness and taking care of yourself. And so I feel like that barometer, like, okay, we have to always manage our boundaries, you know, and we have to create rituals that support managing our boundaries, whatever that means for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, if it's exercise, if it's social connection, you know, kind of try to balance it out. I said I need a few more hobbies to get me outside and doing things. I love sports. So took up pickleball like the rest of the world.
Nice.
Right now.
I love pickleball. So what if I can drill in on that? What does that look like on a practical basis? How do I create those boundaries? What are some steps that you've seen or implemented or encouraged the teams to do?
Well, you know, now tech's coming out with, you know, these really cool tools that remind you about your workday.
Okay.
You know, so I leverage those a lot. Like Viva, I think, I don't know, Outlook, maybe Teams meetings has them now. And it'll remind you, these are like kind of almost having a personal assistant that talks to you. And you're like, oh yeah, that's right.
It is very helpful. It is very helpful.
Or sometimes annoying. But
helpful. Or sometimes annoying, But you know, when you get them in the morning, you kind of look through it. You kind of think about your day. Friday, I'm always a big believer, and you start looking at the work week ahead and try to do it beforehand and mitigate and block off time for yourself. I try to take breaks during the week now, in the middle of the week, you know, just because I'm working from sometimes 7 to 7 at night. I try to control that. But realistically, sometimes it doesn't work like a regular core hours. So I just try to make sure I build in some time for lunch, you know, just to take care of myself. And you have to be intentional.
Is that kind of like that big rocks concept? Like you put them in the calendar first, you make it an appointment, so that, because life's going to give you, work's going to give you all these other things that fill the gaps in very quickly. And if you don't have those planned.
So we have a couple comments that came in, and by the way, thank you all so much for connecting with us during this podcast. A couple of comments, and this is from Aaron Siebert, mentions utilization of contacts and being fully engaged with your technology and passions that drive me forward. I'm assuming those are a part of your purpose, Aaron. I believe what you've put in there, and so we thank you so much for that comment. And also your additional comments as well. And we're talking with Cherie Aplin. She is the head of global leadership development at Edwards Lifesciences. And so we've been talking about this whole idea of purpose. We've also focused on the importance of having purpose, especially when we're in the middle of stress and burnout. And so as we're beginning to wrap things down as it relates to this podcast, Cherie, what would you say, why would it be important for those leaders that are looking at this? Why would you say it's important for them to carve out time to figure out what their purpose is, and how does that help them to alleviate, well, not so much alleviate, but better manage stress moving forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's a powerful question. I don't have all the answers, but I would just say that it's a guiding light. And it doesn't have to be the same forever. But if you can figure out something that's a guiding light for you, kind of your own barometer, when life throws you all kinds of crazy stuff, you have your at least guiding light to fall back on. And I think from a chronic stress standpoint, it does help you manage those moments a lot more effectively. And then just be kind to yourself. Again, I'm reading the book, The Art of Caring. And I think that, and I think it's Heather Younger, that's the author of that book. And we're reading it. I read it with my team every week. We go through a chapter a week. We talk about it in our team meetings, and we just try to keep it top of mind. We need to be flexible and more graceful with our people and with ourselves. I think this is a world now where they expect leaders to be great at everything, and that would be perfection, and that's just not reality. And so just to be realistic about where your strengths are, where your opportunities are, being more self-aware and having a really good focus with a purpose statement, I think will ground all leaders. It certainly has helped me, and I can only speak from my own personal experience. And if that helps someone else, then that would be just more power of influence, right?
Yeah. Well, if I could go ahead.
What's the name of the book again?
Yeah.
So it's called The Art of Caring by Heather Younger. And we were talking a lot about compassion and empathy, because I think it started with empathy, and empathy is how you respond, but compassion is about what do you do about empathy? Like, what do you do about it?
Would you mind, I don't know if you have that with you, but and this is something you sent to us, just as it relates to these new practices and the 6 lessons learned. I thought those were very powerful. And I don't know if you would mind, sharing it for our audience from the book that you mentioned, which is The Art of Caring Leadership by Heather Younger. Would you mind sharing with those that are paying, those that are on the podcast, what those lessons are? Because I think it's really powerful as it relates to what we're talking about today.
Yeah, actually, they were kind of my new lessons.
Oh, yours. Okay. So these are from Cherie Aplin. This is her inspiration from that. So I want to get that corrected. Go right ahead.
Well,
my apologies.
Thank you. Well, no big deal. It's just there are new practices for a new era, as I thought about our session today. And I was going to say that the first one is create time for focused reflection, which I think we talked about. Establish clear boundaries to prevent burnout. Prioritize what's truly urgent and important, going back to the big rocks.
Right.
Be flexible with myself and with people, both personally and professionally. Show others a lot of grace for myself and others. Save face, tied back to the golden rule. And then have a clear purpose, behaving intentionally to elevate others in a positive way. So I guess for me that helped. Thank you for allowing me an opportunity to ground myself in those 6 practices, which are really truly lessons I've learned in this last few years.
Most definitely. And these are absolutely powerful. Now, if I can, I'll just read this over one more time to make sure that you all that are paying attention are getting this, because I believe that these are all lessons that we can put into practice. One thing John and I are very focused on, especially as we're doing these podcasts, is like, what is that one practice that we as leaders could put into place right away this week? And we've been so gracious to get 6. And so I want to make sure they could do one every day of the week.
Yeah. I need 7 now.
So
Sunday, we could rest.
But I definitely want to read these over because I think they're so powerful. 1, create time for focused reflection. Establish clear boundaries to prevent burnout. Prioritize what is truly urgent and important. Be flexible with myself and with people, both personally and professionally. Show others a lot of grace for both myself and others. That's key right there. Showing ourselves grace to ourselves. I think that's great. Save face and also empathy. And then also having a clear purpose helps act as a guide when making tough decisions and checking my own behavior. Man, that's so powerful. And so, Cherie, we want to say thank you so much for joining us. We know how much is on your plate, but you've taken this opportunity to spend some time with us and spend time connecting with those that are paying attention or listening to this podcast. And so we just want to say how grateful we are to you for spending some time with us and providing value to those that are listening to us.
Thank you for the opportunity. This has been a lot of fun.
It's been fun for us.
It definitely has been fun for us. Well, listen, we want to say thank you to all that are on the podcast. If you have comments or questions, go ahead and feel free to add those. We will address those, whether you're watching via LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube. we'd love to hear from you. Also, if you want to connect, we have Cherie's information in the show notes, her LinkedIn, I believe, as well as more information on Edwards Lifesciences. Organization is doing excellent things all around the world. So I encourage you to connect with their website, see a little bit more about what they're doing to save lives, one heart at a time. And so, John, thank you so much for another podcast wrapped up. We look forward to our next one. And I'm going to do a shameless plug and just say, you know, this is a perfect start to, well, I celebrated a birthday, but going into this week at a newer age, this is a perfect start to the week with such great information that we've gotten that we can utilize. Any final thoughts from you?
So another year older, another day wiser. That's Mr. Steve Thomas here for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thanks again for joining us on this podcast. Remember, managers light a fire under people while leaders light a fire in people. Have a great week.
Take care.